What's going on, everyone? We are back on the pontoon build. We are building this pontoon from the ground up, and we're trying to get moving back on it because Florida weather is getting really hot. I miss having my boat. I miss going out in the water. So I'm trying to get this thing back on track, get it moving, get it in the water, hopefully here in the next month or so. One major thing that's been holding us up is the fencing. I talked about it a little bit in the last episode. I'm trying to piece together this fencing, and I'm having trouble sourcing some of the pieces I need, such as the front right corner piece and the gates. Talked about it last episode, and you guys have been a lot of help sending me links. I haven't found the exact one I needed, but you guys have sent me some nice looking fencing that is fully complete that I might end up buying. One that looks pretty similar to what I have right now. I like the fencing that just kind of ends in the back. That's the whole look I'm going for. Issue with that is most of them are out of state. Pretty much all of them are out of state and kind of far away, so trying to figure out a way to get that to me. But we are working on that, and we'll get it taken care of. Also, last episode, we built this. Now, this is not complete yet, but this is my bar slash helm. Kind of bar setting up here. We'll have 6 or 7 people around it, and then the driver back here with the steering and all the controls and everything in the back. This is almost done. There's a little bit more we need to do to it. We need to attach the door, put a coat over the whole thing to protect it in the weather. Also start installing the gauges and some of the other steering elements and stuff up in the front. Get all that taken care of. Finish up the inside, maybe start a little bit of wiring. We need to do that. But the main thing we need to do is work on the bar top. This right here is my bar top. This is a butcher block I ordered from Home Depot, had it shipped to my house. Looks really good. I think it matches the rest of it, but there's some stuff I need to do to it. I need to cut it out, round out the corners, cut out this section so we can have the steering and the controls not in the way of the bar top. Add some cup holders in it, round out this corner up here, and then finally coat it all with some UV epoxy. That way it holds up in the weather. I am gonna end up making a cover for this bar. That way when it's in storage, it will have some protection from the weather. But a lot of this stuff is still needed, such as the epoxy and everything like that. So that is what we're gonna start with. I'm gonna get all this cut out, get it measured, and start putting the epoxy on it because the epoxy takes a few days to dry, and I would like to get this thing done in this episode. Along with that, I want to be adding some signage to the bar. Not really sure what I'm going to do yet with that, but I want it to look cool, so we're going to figure that out. So that's what's up next. Let's go ahead and get to it. Start with the bar top. This is not easy. It takes a few days. Really, it takes like a week to get all this done. The epoxy laid and looking right. And the reason it takes so long is because it's kind of tricky. You need a clean environment, and if you look around, I don't really have too clean of an environment. So it takes a little while to get it looking good. It's a new boat, new logo. I like to name all my boats just so you guys have an idea of which one's which. You may have noticed that I misspelled it to start with. I was thinking of names for this boat like 6 months ago, and I was just writing it down on my phone, and I wrote it down wrong, so I never really checked it. And then when I went to do the design, I just never fixed it. I painted on instead of wood burning it on because the first time I wood burnt a logo into this, it took me like 4 hours to do, and this took me maybe 20 minutes to do. And overall, it looks very similar, painting it versus wood burning it. Painting it's a little bit cleaner. Wood burning has more of a antique look. I think it looks better overall, but for the time difference, I would much rather paint it. And then I also painted the logo on the side. I thought the side just looked way too plain, and I really wanted to do something to it. So I decided to make the logo a little bit bigger, put a stencil on it, and paint it also. I think it looks awesome. I didn't want to do anything too fancy or technical on the sides because there are going to be 3 seats right here. So you're really not going to see it very much, and not to mention the fencing around the boat is going to cover a lot of this. So it doesn't have to be too fancy, but I want it to look good because this is the centerpiece for my boat. So I want it to look good, I want it all to match, and I think it looks really awesome. I love how it turned out. Now, like I said with epoxy, it's pretty tricky. If you don't have all the right materials and just a clean space, you're gonna get bugs, you're gonna get dirt in it, you're gonna get just problems with it. Now, to minimize all those problems, what I do is I start with a simple coat, like a very thin coat on it. That way it fills in a lot of the imperfections in the wood, and also if you get a bug in it, you can usually get it out pretty easy. Just sand it down a little bit. Do one side, let it dry for a day, flip it over to the other side, and so on and so forth, until you build up to a thicker level. And on the final coat, I usually tape around it. That way I can get a really thick layer of epoxy. Then I sand it all back down again, make it all smooth, looking good, and then I paint it with a clear coat, just a normal clear coat, and that usually turns out really well. And this looks really good. There's a couple little imperfections I'll show you, but this is pretty much as good as I'm gonna get for the space and the ability I have. So let me show you those. One of the main things you're gonna deal with, especially in Florida, are bugs. You can kind of see where I dug out a bug. Some of the legs are actually still there, but I dug out a bug right there. There's a few little low spots, and that's where a bubble used to be. To get out the bubbles, you use heat, but if there's like a hole in the wood, it just keeps getting bubbles there until it finally fills up, and that's gonna take multiple layers. So unfortunately, you're just gonna have to deal with that unless you wanna keep doing layers and layers and layers. And at that point, it's gonna build up really thick. Probably too thick. I tried really hard to make it absolutely perfect, but I can't spend 2 weeks on this. It takes a whole day of drying just to put another layer of epoxy on there, so just that time builds up, and it takes up the whole garage because I don't want to be doing work in here and getting dirt and dust into it. So I think it looks good how it is, and in the sun, you're not going to notice there's a little bit of flaws, so I think it looks really good. With this done and out of the way, we can actually put it back onto the bar, line it up, and mount it on. But before we do that, there's a couple more things we need to do to this. I want to protect all this wood from the sun and weather and stuff, so I'm going to put a sealer coat on top of everything. But before I do that, I want to cut out the holes that we need for certain things, such as the steering, the speedometer, the control cables, the radio. I'm going to be putting 2 big speakers up in the front and 2 little ones in the back, along with the horn mount and maybe some vents and also some holes for the wiring. I just want to go ahead and get all that cut and out of the way. That way when we put the sealer coat on, it covers pretty much everything. One more thing, when I installed all these wood slats, I used these little nails, and I didn't have small enough ones to not do this. So what I want to do is I want to grind all that down and put another coat of paint on it. That way, if I am going through here or doing the wiring, I'm not cutting myself on this or cutting the wiring. So I want to go ahead and clean up all that while we can. Get all that taken care of. Now, I'm not sure what else I'm going to add to this bar, but I'm going to go ahead and get the main things out of the way, the things that I know I'm going to be installing. That's what's up next. Let's do it. It is up here, but it's not bolted on yet. I'm gonna wait to bolt it on until I get fencing all in the right spot. That way I can move this thing forwards or backwards to the permanent spot it's gonna be. I'm just gonna wait for the fencing for that. Same thing with the seats and everything else. I don't wanna bolt anything in until I get the fencing in, and then I can adjust from there. Speakers are installed. You may have noticed that these were white to begin with, and that is because I got them as a good deal. These big black speakers were actually about $100 more than the white ones, so I bought the white ones and then just sanded them down and painted them real quick. They look good. You can't even tell the difference between the ones that are already black. So these are two 6.5-inch speakers. These are 10-inch, I believe, and then I'm gonna put 4 more up in the front underneath the seats. This hole is gonna be for a vent. I actually have the vent right here. That vent's gonna go right there, just so some airflow gets in there with all the batteries and wiring and stuff. On the other side, we got the horn right here, same with another speaker. It all looks really good. I coated it all with some polyurethane and some waterproofing for the bare wood. I think it looks awesome. And then with the bar top on top, it matches very well. I didn't cut any holes in this just yet because I was waiting for everything to come in. The steering wheel, all the steering stuff, the controls. I just want to make sure all that was in before I cut any holes because there's no going back once I cut a hole in this. Luckily I got the steering wheel in. That's going to go somewhere around right here. The control box is in. It's going to go somewhere right here. Also have a gauge cluster from pontoonstuff.com that I'm going to install along with their switches, and then hopefully I can get a radio in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to have room yet because there's also a key spot too that needs to go somewhere. We'll have enough room for most of it. I'm just not sure about the radio. That's gonna be a tight fit. If I need to, I can put the radio on the side right here and I think it'll be fine. But I do wanna try to fit it all right here. Once all that is done, we can start installing these seats. Well, putting them together really, because I'm not gonna bolt them down just yet, but these are the seat pedestals, have matching seats that will match the rest of the boat. Perfect. These seats are made by the same company as the rest of it, but these things are mainly found on fishing boats, so they are from bassboatseats.com. They work perfect as bar seats, and they match the rest of the seating from pontoonstuff.com, so very good option if you guys are looking to build a bar on there and match the rest of your seats from pontoonstuff.com. I have 7 bar seats and a captain seat to match the rest of it. I'm gonna get all this put together and then kind of line it up so you guys can get an idea of what it's gonna look like. Like I said, I'm not gonna mount it in yet until I get the fencing installed. So a little bit more stuff to do. Let's get to cutting. starting to look like a boat now. We got controls, we got seating, we got almost everything. I was able to fit pretty much everything on here, so this is a really good size. This gauge cluster is from pontoonstuff.com. It comes with a GPS speedometer, RPMs, a depth gauge, almost everything you need for a boat. I am gonna have to install a fuel gauge because I cannot see my fuel tank on here. It is underneath the boat. But no big deal, we can put that somewhere on here or replace the volt gauge because don't need that as much as a fuel gauge. Steering wheel, I love the steering wheel. I think it fits the vibe of the boat. Have all these switches over here. I have horn, navigation lights, bilge pump, docking lights, and accessory lights. I am going to be installing a few more switches because I need some switches for all the LED lights I'm going to be installing on this boat. So I have enough room over here for that, or I can put it on the sides. We'll figure that out once we start digging into the wiring. Radio over here, along with the throttle and key over here. Fit it all on there pretty easily. I think it looks really good and it's set up really nice, not too cluttered, and you're able to get to everything and see everything. And the black just matches so well with everything. I'm wondering if I need to paint my bar stools black also. They kind of stand out a little bit. Not sure if it's too big of a deal or not, but we'll figure that out once we get the fencing in and see how it all matches. Also have new cup holders for it. These are LED ones, so they light up in the inside, whatever color you want. I still have to wire those up, obviously. And down here, we got the door on. It's gonna be a lot of storage, very nice, very easy to get in and out of there and be able to handle any kind of wiring we have to do underneath there. Seats match very well. The color is actually matching the inside of the stitching right here. That's the exact same material and same color, so it all matches. Looks really good. I do think I'm leaning more towards painting those bar stools. I think it's gonna look a lot better. Still waiting for a pedestal for my captain's chair. I just want to get some the right size and also fully adjustable forward and backwards, as long as up and down. That way the captain of the boat is really comfortable, whoever's driving that day. One thing that's a big bummer is, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but my tabletop is starting to get a little bit of bubbles in it. I don't know if you can see that well on camera, but there's a few spots that are raising up a little bit. And I don't know what I did to cause that. I think maybe I put it out in the sun a little too soon, so it wasn't fully cured yet, and that caused some bubbles underneath. You might be able to see it in the lighting right here, just a few bubbles right around where the logo is. I think the sun was just way too hot on this area, and that's caused a bubble. Yeah, real bummer. But mistakes happen, and it's something we have to deal with, especially building a boat from the ground up, so we're bound to run into some issues. If this is the biggest issue we have, I'm okay with that. Speaking of issues, my fencing, I got some on order. Thank you guys so much for helping me out. You guys have been sending me a bunch of emails, messaging me on Instagram, and one of those listings that you sent me, I reached out to the guy and bought some. The unfortunate part, it's gonna be about a month before I get them here because they are in Indiana, and 1 month is when I can get them down to me. Once we get those in, we can install those and start bolting down the furniture, the bar, everything else, and get the wiring ran. But there is still something else we can do that is a pretty big important part to a boat. You may have seen it in the background of this video, but we have something that we're gonna be installing next episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't already, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok. I post some behind the scenes on there, posting a lot more nowadays, behind the scenes and what's upcoming and future episodes. Also, if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, it is free to do. You can always unsubscribe anytime you want, but it does help me out if you guys subscribe to my channel. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode.